Right now I am in the same competition template document as always, and I have scrolled down to the user control void. To begin coding our joysticks, we need to create two variables, and these variables are going to tell us the position of the left joystick on the horizontal axis and the vertical axis. To create these variables, we're going to use a variable type called a float, and a float is a number with a decimal. So we type float, and then we want the variable to be named. In this case, horizontal position. And then we type what it's equal to, and it's going to be equal to on controller 1, the axis 4. And the reason I say axis 4 is I've looked over here, and I'm using this left joystick, and it shows me that this axis going from left to right is axis 4, and then the position, and the position in percent. And that's it. Now we do it again for the vertical position. Now if you don't like the names I'm using for the variables, that's totally fine. You can totally change them. Just make sure that when you're referring back to them later, you're using your own names and not mine. Because if you create variables and you call them, for example, sideways direction, and then later you're trying to use horizontal position, the computer won't know what you're talking about. Now we have finished with the variables, and we're going to use them in our motor commands. We're going to start with the left wheel, and we're going to say left wheel dot spin. But instead of just saying forward or reverse, we're going to do a direction type. And what the direction type does is it allows the wheel to spin both forward and backward in the same command. So when the direction type is set to forward, the wheel will spin forward if the velocity is positive and backwards if the velocity is negative. Now, what is that velocity? Well, it has to be the vertical position. That way the robot will go forward when we pull the joystick forward and backwards when we pull it back. But we also have to add the horizontal position. And the reason we do this is for turning. So if you think, well, if we're pulling the joystick to the right and we want the robot to turn right, the left wheel has to spin more. And the horizontal position value will be positive, so we have to add that value. Now we just add %, and that's it. Now if you have multiple wheels on the left side, you can do just the exact same thing. You can say left wheel 2 dot do whatever, and you just copy this same thing down. But I only have one wheel on each side, so I'm going to instead move on to my right wheel dot spin. Direction type is going to be, once again, forward, vertical position. But instead, this time we're going to say minus the horizontal position. And again, thinking of this in terms of turning, if you are turning left, the right wheel has to spin more, but pulling the joystick to the left gives you a negative value, so you have to subtract that negative. And now we've completely finished this joystick code, and it should be functioning. But if you type this exact same code into your project and you download it onto your robot and you find that it's completely backwards, don't panic. All that means is that you need to change which wheel you're reversing in your robot configuration. So I have the left wheel reversed, but if I was having that problem, I would change the left wheel to normal and reverse the right wheel. And that's it. Then it'd be fully functional and everything would be working perfectly. So now you've completed the last video, and you can move on to the autonomous videos with Celeste.